Hey Heartway fam, happy Sunday and welcome to another week of Heartway at Home. We're so excited you're here. Today something amazing happened and we finally opened our doors for the very first time since a long time, it feels like forever. But what an incredible Sunday. We are so excited that you would have decided to join us here for Heartway at Home experience. Hey, if you want to come and join us for our in-person gatherings, you are more than welcome to, but you can RSVP online at heartwaychurch.com. And the amazing thing is that you can RSVP for the entire year, so make sure to lock in your spot and invite all of your family and friends. We would love to have you. Also, another amazing thing that has happened is we have launched our new line of merch. We have launched 2 new pieces that are online as well, that you can access them via heartwaychurch.com, or you can purchase them in person at our Sunday morning services. This is one of the shirts, and then we're gonna have a sweatshirt, which is we're super excited about for this fall winter season.
And the person who creates these shirts is like a fashionista. She is incredible with all of the stuff that she creates, and her name is Emily Prada, which is why I love them so much, and I think you'll love it too. So you'll probably see me rocking it on Sundays if you come to Heartway. Now, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you who give faithfully and consistently to support our vision here at Heartway Church of helping people discover themselves in God and transform the world through love. We get so many messages from people from all over the place, constantly, week in and week out, thanking us for the work that we're doing here at Heartway, for the content that we're putting out into the world, for the love that we're showing to so many different people. And so it's impossible for us to do this without you. And I know that obviously this year, so many of us have been hit very hard as a result of COVID, and financially things may not be exactly where we want them to be or envision them to be. But what I do know is that your sacrifice is not going unnoticed. And it's actually going a long way in helping us make a true impact in the lives of people who are hurting and struggling every single day. And so if you would like to continue to give, you can do so at heartwaychurch.com/give. You can text your dollar amount at 84321, or you can give via Cash App by donating to the tag $Heartway Church. Alongside of that, I know I talk about this often, but we are definitely looking for people who won't just give from time to time, even though of course that's helpful and very welcome, but we're looking for people who would be willing to take that next step and commit to giving on a recurring basis. If that's you and you think that there's a way that you can give, whether it's monthly or bi-weekly or whatever the way you want to give, and do so consistently, that will be a huge help for us as we continue to prepare our budget moving into 2021 and do all of the amazing things that we have planned to do. So you can do that at heartwaychurch.com/give as well. And I encourage you to pray about this opportunity and ask God if this is right for you. Now, we hope you enjoy the rest of today's Heartway at Home experience. We love you and we look forward to what's to come.
I've tried so hard to see it. Took me so long to believe it, that you choose someone like me to carry your victory. Perfection could never earn it. You give what we don't deserve, and you take the broken things and raise them to glory. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all. Now I can finally see it. You're teaching me how to receive it. So let all the striving cease. Oh, this is my victory. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all. You have conquered it all. Oh. When I lift my voice and shout, every wall comes crashing down. I have the authority Jesus has given me. When I open up my mouth, miracles start breaking. When I lift my voice and shout, every wall comes crashing down. I have the authority Jesus has given me. When I open up my mouth, miracles start breaking out. I have the authority Jesus has given me. When I lift my voice and shout, every wall comes crashing down. I have the authority Jesus has given me. When I open up my mouth, miracles start breaking out. I have the authority Jesus has given me. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated. By the power of your name, I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all.
Hey Heartway fam, I'm excited to be with each and every one of you during this time of centering prayer. Today, I really want us to experience some self-love. And when I say self-love, I want us to experience some self-healing. And I want you to know that self-healing is a journey. It's a journey that takes us from suffering to that inner peace that is within each and every one of us. And this journey comes with consistency, grace, and just a lot of commitment, which is why I believe that this time of centering prayer is so important for each and every one of us. You know, I love to view my growth and my journey like a tree. A tree grows from a little seed. Just like you and I, we don't grow overnight, and it comes through lots of consistency, lots of watering, lots of caring and taming. So I want you to be mindful of that and know that our growth comes with time. Our self-healing comes with time. It is all a journey, and it begins with this very moment. And it begins with you observing yourself, observing your thoughts, and just being kind to yourself. So during this time, I want us to sit in silence for a lot of the time and just observe ourselves. But before we begin, I want us to close our eyes and get into a comfortable position. If you'd like, you can go ahead and put your palms facing upwards if you feel like you want to receive. If you feel like you need to be grounded, you can go ahead and place your palms downwards. And then we're going to go ahead and close our eyes, and we're going to take a few deep breaths together. So we're going to inhale. And we're going to exhale. We're going to go ahead and inhale. We're going to go ahead and exhale. I'm going to take one more breath together. And we're going to go ahead and exhale. In this moment, I want you to observe those breaths that you just took. Were they fast? Were they slow? Did you rush through them? Do you feel heavy? Or do you feel light? How do you feel in this very moment? Are thoughts arising? If they are, I want you to just observe them with no judgment. How do you speak to yourself when these thoughts arise? Are you kind and loving, or are you mean? Are you aware of the way you speak to yourself? When we love ourselves, we're able to love the world at a different capacity. And that self-love, that inner healing, comes with observing ourselves. It comes with healing all of the good and all of the bad. It comes with accepting our light, but also accepting our darkness. Self-love is medicine for this earth. When we go inward, we can then love outward. When we experience God within ourselves, we can then experience God within the world. Healing comes through knowing that every thought that arises is okay. Simply do not attach, simply observe. In these moments of silence, I want you to observe, do you feel at peace? Or do you feel yourself struggling to find that inner peace? In this moment, be still. And know that God is as close as your very breath. When we accept every moment as it is, we can step into God's presence. We can release all of the suffering, and we can experience God at a deeper level. As soon as you're ready, we're going to bring awareness back. We're going to take one deep breath together before we open our eyes. ahead and exhale. And gently open your eyes. Thank you so much for joining us in this time of centering prayer. I want to remind you again, self-love, inner healing, and that peace is a journey. Be gentle and loving and kind to yourself. Have an amazing day.
Good morning, Heartway. So happy that you are with us. To get us started today, I want us to read from the book of Psalms, Psalm 147. It's a beautiful passage of scripture that speaks to the heart and is so comforting for the soul. Here's what it says. Psalm 147, verses 1 and 3. It is a good thing to sing praise to our God. Praise is beautiful. Praise is fitting, for God heals the brokenhearted and bandages their wounds. There are so many of us who, for a variety of different reasons, have been carrying around within us so much emotional baggage because of all of the ways that other people have wounded us and the ways that life has hurt us and all of the difficult, painful experiences that we've gone through in the past. And we want to get better. We want to heal, but the pain is so immense that we don't even know where to begin. And so today I want to talk about what it looks like for us to take a few steps in the direction of healing. What I've come to discover in my life is that the more connected we become to God, the more healing we can begin to experience from our past. You know, in the scriptures, God is described and given many different names. But one of the names that stands out the most to me is the name Jehovah Rapha, which means the God who heals. This is actually how God reveals the divine self to the people of Israel after they are rescued from their slavery in Egypt. Look at what it says in the book of Exodus. Exodus chapter 15 and verse 26. I am the Lord who heals you. So healing is something that is accessible and available to each and every one of us. It is something that belongs to each and every one of us. It doesn't matter how deep and dark the hole you are in may be, there is a way out, and the way out is through. See, healing is a process that involves, number one, facing reality. Number two, forgiving yourself and others. And number three, working through uncomfortable emotions that we rather not deal with. Have you ever wondered how it could be the case that certain difficult situations happen to us 5, 10, 15 years in the past, and yet they still seem to have an effect on us now? We're still hurt, we're still bitter, we're still carrying around pain that has not been resolved from our past. Well, the reason why is because even though those painful occurrences have already occurred, they continue to occur within our memory. But here's my question for you. Are those memories real? And I want you to answer that in the most literal way possible. I want you to understand this question in the most literal way that you can. Are those painful memories of our past real? Like, can you take them out of your mind and touch them and feel them and see them? Of course, the answer is no. Which means the hurt that we have experienced in our past can only be experienced again and again within our imagination. Which is why there's one teacher who says, all pain is either recalled or anticipated. All of our pain is something that we bring out from the past, or we project into the future. And like many of the Stoic philosophers would say, more often than not, what we are actually suffering is our imagination, not reality. Because what happens is we go through difficult circumstances in our life, and then we assign meaning to those circumstances. We begin to interpret those events in a particular way, and then we begin to craft an identity around these stories that we create, not recognizing that those stories are not absolute. Those stories aren't necessarily and don't have to be the final story. Those stories, those narratives that we have began to create around the events and circumstances of our lives can be changed. And the way that that happens is by taking a step back and looking at our life and observing our internal world and our internal narratives from a third person point of view. This requires getting very quiet, becoming still, being self-observant, becoming self-aware. And the deeper and deeper you go into this process, the more you will begin to be able to recognize how your conditioning and your programming and your unhealed pain from the past is causing you to frame certain events and circumstances and interpret certain events and circumstances in the way that you do. It's only by being able to take that step back and see things from a higher vantage point that you can then see something beyond just your conditioning and your programming. And so when it comes to healing, what ultimately needs to be healed is our perception, because it's our perception that keeps us locked into our suffering. And what it looks like to heal our perception is, first and foremost, taking responsibility for the ways that we interpret certain events and circumstances in our life, and then recognizing that any interpretation we have about a life circumstance that is rooted in fear or that produces any sort of anger and frustration and disillusionment and tension within ourselves is actually a misinterpretation. And now, that's not anything to feel bad about. It's not wrong to do that, because all we can ever do is simply interpret reality in the way that we do, until we discover a different way, a better way, a higher way. And so, how do I know there's a higher way to look at things? Well, because there are many other people who have gone through very similar circumstances that I have, who have been able to interpret those same painful, difficult, traumatic events in their lives in a life-giving and liberating way. And so what it takes is us being willing to be honest about our story and our narrative, and open up our hearts for God to show us a higher way, a better way. One example of this in the scriptures is in the book of Genesis, where a man named Joseph experiences betrayal by his family, his closest relatives, his brothers. And many years later, after betraying their brother Joseph, these same men come to Joseph asking him for help. Mind you, as a result of their betrayal, his life went down a completely, totally different trajectory that involved a lot of pain and a lot of sorrow and a lot of uncertainty. And if there was ever anybody in the world who had a reason to look at those people who hurt and betrayed him and say, "Who do you think you are?" and just tell them off, it would be Joseph. And yet, when his brothers confront him and ask him for help, Joseph, instead of taking revenge or trying to prove a point or trying to win some sort of an argument, he says, "You see, all those things that you did in the past, you meant that to harm me, but God meant that for my good." That is looking at painful circumstances from a higher level of consciousness, from a higher vantage point, which is what leads ultimately to freedom. You know, one of the greatest obstacles that we have in our healing is an unwillingness to actually face our pain and our suffering. And that unwillingness to face our pain and our suffering is oftentimes derived from our inability to accept the fact that what happened to us actually happened to us. And yet without acceptance, there is no healing. I'm not saying that you need to downplay all of the things that happened to you in the past. Acceptance doesn't mean just pretending that everything that was done to you was totally okay and there's no problem with it. It simply means you're not excluding or rejecting anything that has happened to you in the past anymore. You are now including it into your life story. But the only way that we can come to this place of radical acceptance, even of the most darkest circumstances that we've experienced in our past, the only way we can come to this place of radical acceptance is by acknowledging and honoring all of the painful emotions that we carry that are associated with those traumatic events of our past. We must acknowledge, we must honor these feelings and these emotions. We can't just ignore it. We can't just try and move past it, because you'll never be able to move beyond it until you learn how to let go of the emotions that are connected to it. If you just suppress the emotions, eventually they're going to continue to live within you and then become the filter through which you see everything else and experiencing everything else, and you're going to actually come across the same problems over and over and over again, because you are projecting your pain and your unhealed wounds onto your experience of reality. We cannot let go of these emotions, though, if we first do not let them be. We cannot let go of that emotional charge within us that's lodged in our body when we bring up certain memories or certain people's names who have hurt us and harmed us, unless we first become willing to experience these feelings in all of their fullness. And this is huge. This is really important, because this is what is the scary part for most of us. This is the part that most of us rather avoid. And yet so many of the painful emotions that we have come because people have hurt us. We've been wounded. We've gone through unfair life situations that were totally beyond our control. And of course, we have a right to feel the way that we are feeling. And so how could we neglect these feelings? We've got to work through these feelings no matter how uncomfortable they may be. If we don't allow these emotions and these feelings, I mean the anger that you may have, the sorrow, the sadness that you may have that is connected to these painful events, if you don't let those emotions have their lifespan in you, you will always remain stuck in them. And you will not experience the freedom for which Christ came to set you free. And so we have to begin by acknowledging, honoring, and somehow being able to express our emotions and talk about our feelings. And so maybe you need to scream it out. Maybe you need to find some sort of creative outlet through which you can let it out. Maybe you need to talk it out with someone you love, or with the people who hurt you, or with your therapist, or with a pastor. I would be more than willing to do that with those of you who need me. Or maybe you just need to punch it out. You know, go to a gym and start punching it out. I have a friend who does that. He hits the bags and he feels like it's just a release. You got to work it out somehow. I don't know what you need to do. Everybody has their own way, right? But the point is, instead of stuffing these emotions, we have to allow them to be. And then we begin to process those emotions. Unprocessed emotions will make our lives miserable. We've got to process these emotions. And in doing so, ask God to help show us a better way. And then once we sit with our emotions in this way and make room for our emotions in this way, the way we can begin to heal from those emotions is through forgiveness. Forgiveness. Maybe you need to forgive God. Maybe you need to forgive God because your life is not what you expected it to be. And you've experienced what you deem to be just very unfair circumstances compared to other people that you know. And you just have a problem with the way God has set up this whole thing. And maybe you need to forgive God. Maybe you need to forgive yourself for the way you have reacted, for the things you have done to cause harm to yourself and others. Maybe you need to forgive other people for manipulating you, for betraying you, for leaving you, for hurting you in the way that they did. We have to face reality. We have to confront the very things that we have been trying to run away from for so long. And we have to remember that when we go into that darkness within us, we're not going alone, because the Spirit of God is with us. And the comfort of the Spirit will be there with us when we need it the most. We just have to be willing to take that journey inward. Is it going to be painful? Yes, which is why one teacher says, before the truth sets you free, it will make you miserable. It's going to hurt. But when you process your emotions and you recognize what your unmet needs are, and where you feel you have been damaged, and where those wounds are still alive in you, once you do that, then you take the step of forgiveness. And the ultimate forgiveness, by the way, which if you can take this step of ultimate forgiveness, you won't have to forgive anybody or anyone ever again. The ultimate forgiveness is forgiving life for being the way that it is. Forgiving life for not being what you thought it should be or what you desired it to be. And that can be very difficult, but I like to call it the ultimate forgiveness, because once we can take that step and forgive life for being what it is, we can be set free. This is what the scriptures speak of as conforming our will to the will of God. Letting go of our desire for life to go the way that we want it to go, and simply desiring life to be the way that it is, because that's the way that it is. And we will choose to live a life of surrender, submitting our will to God's will. Even if it doesn't seem comprehensible to our mind how certain situations could have unfolded the way that we did, we humble ourselves and we say, not my will, but your will be done. And we forgive life for being the way that it is. And then we can accept life exactly the way that it is. And then we find our power. Then we find our power. It's interesting to me that all throughout the Gospels, there are several instances when Jesus would heal people who were sick and who were blind and who were paralyzed. And after they would experience this wonderful miracle, Jesus would look at these people and he would say, it is your faith that has healed you. Your faith has healed you. You know what that tells me? That we all have a role to play in our healing. God is the healer. Don't get it twisted. God is the healer. But we are responsible for opening ourselves up to the very possibility of being healed in the first place. Because if we don't open ourselves up to that possibility to begin with, how can we experience the miracle? How can we experience the healing? It's going to take a lot of faith. It's going to take a lot of courage. You're going to be taken places right now you do not want to go. And you're going to have to face yourself. You're going to have to face yourself because, I know things were done to you. I know horrible things have been experienced in your life and that you were hurt by other people. And yet when we get quiet enough, when we get still enough, not only will we be able to see all of those ways that we were hurt and let all of the feelings that were attached to that memory flow through us, but we will also be able to see those things that we need to take responsibility for that have also contributed to our suffering. And if you get honest enough, you will find that there are things you can take responsibility for. And when you make the decision to take the responsibility for your suffering, you begin to take huge strides towards evolution, towards growth in consciousness, and towards the expansion of your heart. This is why, in one instance, Jesus walked up to a paralyzed man, and he asked him a very important question that I want to ask to each and every one of you today. Look at what it says in this passage of Scripture. John chapter 5 and verse 6. Do you want to be healed? Do you want to be healed? First, Jesus asked the man that question. Then, when he said yes, he was able to experience the breakthrough. Do you want to be healed? A lot of us, of course, we say yes. Yes, we want to be healed. Yes, we want to be set free. But what we don't realize is that unconsciously, we don't want to be healed. We actually don't want to be healed because we have created an identity for ourselves around our woundedness and our brokenness and our victimhood. And there's a payoff that our ego receives from remaining rooted in this identity of victimhood. Maybe that payoff comes in the form of attention and approval from other people. Maybe that payoff for the ego comes in the form of a sense of righteousness and superiority on your end. Whatever the case may be, you will know that you are on the path of healing when you can look back at your life and not need or want any part of it to be any different. Because those of us who are on the path of healing, we seek to live in harmony with the way things are. We don't argue with reality because we live in a state of trust and we have let go of control, which means we no longer resort to blame. If you want to blame other people for the misery that you're in, of course you have the freedom and the right to do that. You just got to know that that can only take you so far. If you want your freedom, you've got to get rid of the blame and you need to begin taking responsibility for those things that you can take responsibility for, because blame will leave you absolutely powerless. Blame will get you in a kind of predicament where you need other people or other circumstances to change or be different in order for you to be okay and to be at peace. But when you can take responsibility for your narrative, when you can take responsibility for your interpretation and your perception, when you can release the stories that you have been telling about your life experiences, then you can begin to see the story that God has been writing all along. And oh my goodness, let me tell you, that story is a much better story. It is a much more beautiful story. It is a good story that includes all of the bad and the negative and the dark that you have gone through and turns it into something you just wouldn't have it any other way. You wouldn't have it any other way. And once you begin to heal like this, guess what happens? Now you become a healer. You become a healer. And the way that you become a healer is by healing yourself. The best way, by the way, to help other people heal is by showing them your wounds, not by trying to patch up theirs. Because God is the healer. And so all you need to do is share your experiences. All you need to do is share your stories. All you need to do is talk about your journey, trusting that as you make space for people to be where they are, as you let go of the need to try and fix and change other people, that God will be at work in their lives. That they will take from your story whatever it is that they need to take, and that they will come to discover with God's help that they too have the power to heal themselves. So be courageous, be bold, get still, get quiet. Honor these emotions that you're carrying. Process these emotions that are still alive within you. Be willing to take a step back from your interpretations and your narratives and see things from a third-person point of view and ask God to show you a higher way. It will be shown to you. It will be shown to you. And as your perception heals, so will your life. So will your life. God, I thank you that you are the healer and that you have not left us alone to our own devices, but through your Spirit, you bring comfort, you bring hope, and you help us to recontextualize all of the hurtful circumstances and events of our past so that we can perceive you in and through all of it. Enable us, God, to see things from this higher vantage point so that we can be set free, so that we can be healed, and so that through us, others can be healed as well. We pray all of these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks for being with us, Heartway. Love you.